What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today, we're going to be looking at some Toronto Maple Leaf trade rumors. Now, if you guys are new here and you love this type of content, make sure to like this video and subscribe. I'd love to have you guys here. Join the team. I want to have you guys here on this Maple Leaf rumor news trade talk channel because it's going to get real interesting for the Maple Leafs in the very near future, and we're going to be going over a couple of those points today. But as we know, the Maple Leafs have been a little bit of a mid team, and that's something that I've been talking about over the last, month or so, is that I really believe that the Maple Leafs are a team that are kind of a middle of the pack team. Now, some people are going to say, well, they've been winning some games and they're in a playoff spot. Now, that's not a bad thing. And I'm not saying that they're like legitimately middle of the pack when it comes to the standings. I'm talking about the good teams. They're kind of in the middle of like barely squeaking in, is being the bottom, and obviously the top being the best. I think they're in the middle where they're kind of like, yeah, we're good, but we're not great, and we're not good enough to be a Stanley Cup contender. And at the beginning of the season, when I looked at this roster and the depth moves that they made, I was like, oh, this team looks legit. They look scary. They look like they could be a Stanley Cup contender. But there's been a lot of injuries. There's been some players that haven't really lived up to the hype. They haven't lived up to their name. They haven't played as well as they should have been playing. And to be quite honest with you, pretty much every signing that the Maple Leafs made in the offseason hasn't really gone according to plan. It hasn't gone the way that I expected it, or maybe you expected it. But now is not the time to just look at those guys and go, okay, well, they screwed up, time to start over. No, you're already going here. It's already started. And with a bunch of the injuries that have happened on the Leafs blue line, and of course John Klingberg being out for the rest of the season, the Maple Leafs are in trouble, and they need to beef up that blue line. They need to make multiple moves. And Trey Living had said in the summer that the defense was what he wanted to work on the most. And he ended up only getting John Klingberg, so he really didn't address those things. Now, with Liljegren, he's still out at the time of recording. Gio, at the time of recording, still out. Klingberg out for the year. And even an injury to Joseph Woll. That's obviously not on the blue line, but they've got a little bit of wiggle room and money to play with. Now, I will explain how some of that money goes away, and we'll look at that in just a second. But I do want to talk about Elliot Friedman and his 32 thoughts and, the general consensus of what, reporters and Toronto-based media have been talking about over the last little while. And that's the fact that the Maple Leafs have been looking at defensemen, and there's been some interesting names thrown out there. So, of course, like I mentioned before, with the injuries, there's been Chris Tanev being named, and you can see they've got that piece. Oh, not that whole piece. Of course, it's going to do this. But right in here at the bottom, Tanev being a bit of a different case. We'll get to that in a second. But you're going to see an interesting name towards the top, and that's Rasmus Ristolainen. And he's currently he has 3 years left on a $25.5 million contract. And here it says, I don't believe the Flyers are eager to give him away. Now, the Maple Leafs should be eager not to want this player. Now, apparently the Leafs have checked in on this player, but Rasmus Ristolainen is not good defensively. He is just the type of guy that I don't think the Maple Leafs need, and that's why I want to just briefly touch on him, and if there's more information coming out about him, we can talk about that at a later time. Now, Ristolainen, like I mentioned, $5.1 million here, and the next 3 seasons again at $5.1 million, like we just mentioned before. This is a guy that doesn't play really well defensively. He doesn't put up a lot of points, so it's not like you're getting one or the other. You're pretty much getting neither. Now, the 20 points last year, not too bad. Philly hasn't really been the greatest, but as you can see, he's only played in 7 games so far this season. He has 1 point so far. He's not giving good numbers. Apparently, he's played a little bit better defensively, but he's still not worth that $5.1 million. I'm not really sure where these talks are coming from. If this is just because he's 6'4", 220, that's a really silly reason to want to go out there and get a guy like that. And we're going to look at the Leafs cap situation very soon, and you're going to have to realize that there would still have to be cap out if they want to bring this player in. Even with Klingberg on LTIR for the rest of the season, there's still some trouble there. And some people are just looking at the Klingberg injury and going, oh, the Leafs just freed up $4 million. No, there's a lot of different things that go into this. And the fact of the matter is they don't have that over $4 million in cap space, especially if you want to hold on to an extra player for a road trip or something like that. Now, the next player that's being mentioned quite a bit, and he's been mentioned on multiple occasions, is Chris Tanev. And this is the Leafs' far and away best option that they could go and get. He's a guy that is a bona fide top 4 defenseman. He's making $4.5 million this year for the Calgary Flames. He has that modified no trade clause. He's from Toronto. He's 33, so yes, he's getting up there a little bit, but not the type of guy that's falling out of place. He's been really, really good so far this season. 6'2", so not a small guy, pushing 200 pounds. And again, with that 1 year left on the deal, just this season that he's playing right now, Calgary not being that good of a team could retain some of that salary. There could be a little bit of money coming out, which I do believe will happen if the Maple Leafs do decide to go at Chris Tanev. This would be a really good replacement. You'd be replacing John Klingberg with a very much more defensive style, stay-at-home type of guy. He would be a much better fit for the Maple Leafs. He will contribute a little bit offensively too. We can just quickly take a look at his numbers. You can see over the years he's chipped in a little bit, and the points are not exactly what you're going for here. He's been a plus player on a pretty bad team. You can see in previous years he's been like plus 28. Again, plus minus isn't the greatest stat to track players with, but Chris Tanev is far and away the best option. Now, when I did talk to you guys earlier about cap hits, now this is what the Leafs will look like when they're relatively healthy. And by that, I mean Gio coming back, Liljegren coming back, Wall and Samsonov both in there. Samsonov is back now. He's been playing all right. But you can see Klingberg is on LTIR, Murray, Muzzin, as we knew. But this is what it looks like with guys sent down. You could even send down Lagesson. This is relatively what the Leafs cap situation will look like. So $3.2 million roughly that they can play with. And again, if you're looking at Tanev, he has that $4.5 million cap hit. So that's not enough for the Maple Leafs to make a move here. Now, would that mean that you trade a Connor Timmins in that deal to make the money work a little bit better with some salary retention? That does make some sense. I've seen people say, oh, just trade Calle Jarnkrok and bring up a cheaper forward like a Bobby McMahon. Guys, the way that Calle Jarnkrok has been playing, he's played a really, really good depth role. He's been playing that depth role that I talked about. I wanted Domi and Bertuzzi to play. I think Jarnkrok is doing a better job at that, and he's playing like less important roles than them. So again, you can't just stick Jarnkrok into any trade unless you're upgrading at that position. And the Maple Leafs can't just sacrifice a good depth forward like that, because while you're saving some goals bringing in Tanev, you're not like it's not really like balancing itself out here. Like you're legitimately just getting rid of a forward who actually does something good for you and replacing a bad defenseman with a good defenseman. There's no winning there. You need to keep both of these guys. And if you believe Timmins is just depth, you have to trade Timmins, replace him with a guy like Tanev. And again, I'm not saying, oh, it's like a 1-for-1 trade. No, there's going to be salary retention involved. There's going to be a really good prospect involved. There's going to be probably a B or C level prospect, a high pick. There's going to be some things involved because Tanev is a bona fide top 4 guy. Some would argue that, on 90% of teams, this guy could be a top pairing defenseman. So those don't just grow on trees. You're not just going to get this guy for free. It's going to be a trade that takes some time. Now, I wanted to just make a video based on these two guys. There are far more options in the NHL that we can talk about. But as my like comeback video here for after taking a little bit of time off, as you guys know, the holidays are a little crazy, I wanted to talk about the most notable names that have been talked about recently. And I'm sure we're going to talk about Tanev a million times over. I'm not sure when Calgary's timeline is on when they want to start moving some of these bodies, but it's inevitable. This team is going to end up starting to trade some pieces. And for the Maple Leafs, they might have to go out there and get a depth defenseman right now just to cover some of the holes. But when it comes to them actually going all in and looking for defensemen, Chris Tanev should be at the top of that list. And they might have to make 2 or 3 moves on that blue line. Like, you might see a guy like Timmins get moved out. There's still potential that the Leafs could sit Giordano if they feel like they can get a better option there. Maybe Liljegren, if they give up on him. I wouldn't give up on him just yet. He was playing just fine before the injury. It really sucks, that whole situation, and nothing came out of it. The Leafs didn't really defend him anyways. So it's just a crappy situation. But the Maple Leafs have a lot to think about. They have a lot of options here, and there's plenty more from me coming when it comes to these trade options. So if you guys are new here, like, subscribe, join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. Definitely got some good content coming for you guys, some cool sponsorships, and a lot of fun. I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Peace.